Okay, well, here live at the University of Chicago, famous for many things, famous for the Manhattan Project, famous for a lot of stuff before Manhattan Project. But the football stadium here is where the Manhattan Project was originally developed, so it's very famous for that. We're also in front of Hull House. Hull House, the subject of many different commenters, Field O'Connell being one of the key commenters, and we're going to talk to our expert, Jenny. Sorry. Sorry, I apologize. Was live, I can't do anything about it. So, I apologize. I've said it before, so it doesn't matter. I apologize, everyone. That's outing a source. So anyway, I'll just call it, that was my fake name. But there it is, Hull House right here. You can see it's kind of like 1856 is when this house was built. It's a two-story building. And right on the grounds of the University of Chicago. So let's get over that. So Jenny.
Task Force.
Task Force.
Yeah.
I knew I shouldn't have started introducing.
My name's not actually Jenny. I played you. I've been playing you the whole time.
Good.
So you actually have no idea who I am.
We have several McCabe zealots out on the internet that want to attack our guests for some reason. I understand that they want to protect Andy McCabe or are big Andy McCabe fans, but anyway, we're leaving that aside right now. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Hull House and some of the things Field O'Connell's research has done, and Christine Marcy and the SES and all that stuff.
Well, Phil McConnell is from Abel Danger, so I give a shout out to him. He's done a tremendous amount of work on this. But Christine Marcy was
the Abel Danger program was the program.
The program that was Abel Danger was the original program run by Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer prior to 9/11 that was tracking the 9/11 hijackers.
Tony Schaefer tracking, and this would have been Blind Chic and all those.
Yeah,
folks.
all those guys, and so that Abel Danger then became kind of a website of people involved in a kind of the exposing
9/11 truther
9/11 truther stuff. But even more than that, Phil McConnell was an Air Force pilot. He's got his own jet in a museum, and just a tremendously knowledgeable guy. And his sister happens to be named Christine Marcy. Now, Christine Marcy was part of starting what is now known as the SES in 1979, the Senior Executive Services, something that's coming up on the internet everywhere right now. One of the things that Phil talks about is that the SES was part, Hull House is kind of part of that. There's very controversial things that happened at the Hull House, and I just encourage people to research it. The tie-ins with Sidley Austin law firm, as well as some of the
the Sidley Austin law firm. I remember seeing the Sidley house in up by Tenleytown in Washington D.C. Any connection?
Well, I don't know if there's I know there's the school for children of politicians that
Rahm Emanuel, I think, was a ballerina or a ballet dancer.
Something like that.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but then there's a Sidley Investments here on Dearborn,
right,
in Chicago. So we'll have to do some more research.
Yeah, but Sidley Austin Law Firm is where two of the most famous people in our country first met, and so you guys can research that, look into that. But
now, I think you're speaking of Barack Obama and his wife Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and use those code names from here on in for those two individuals.
And so I look into that, and then also the fact that Bernadine Dorn, who was part of the Weather Underground, along with Bill Ayers,
okay.
were involved.
A lot of people say Bill Ayers wrote all three autobiographies that I read about Barack Obama, codenamed Barack Obama. Is that true?
That's what people say. I don't know, but I know that there is a connection with Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, Sidley Austin Law Firm, and Hull House. And I think it would be interesting for people to look into. Why did that occur? Why was it shut down suddenly in 2012? Why is it now a museum? What actually happened here, and the tie-ins that Phil McConnell has made with Abel Danger?
So I'll fill in a little bit. I think around 1889 is when they say that, my grandfather would have been coming through here right around that time. He didn't come through Chicago. He came through Ellis Island in New York. But a lot of immigrants could not speak English. They didn't have any skills. A lot of them were children. A lot of them had sick parents and a lot of children ended up here. I think they have
Yeah, it was mostly an orphanage, so that's kind of
There was a children's house. There
children,
was a boys'
house and a girls' house, and there was some.
And there was a young singles girls' house called the Jane House as well.
Right. Jane Addams is the founder of this place, and so you can do research on her as well and kind of get into the history of this place. It'd be really informative for people that want to learn.
Now, interesting that this is on the property of the University of Chicago, and that's under the jurisdiction of the Chicago Police. As an ex-police officer, you may have some comments about that.
Well, the University of Chicago has its own police department, as most universities do. And so I had read an article recently that they were actually patrolling or doing work with about 65,000 of Chicago's residents, which is odd for a university campus police department to be involved in. So I actually made a phone call a little earlier, just doing some research on policing in America, and talked to a lieutenant there, and he advised me that no, they only work on campus, but he said they do go off campus a couple blocks here and there because they have students that are commuting, which is okay, but it's kind of contradicts what the article says. So I'm just curious as to how that works.
Now we had this shooting that occurred, and it was a University of Chicago police officer going off campus and shooting somebody who was supposedly breaking windows or something like that off campus. Now that would have been, I don't know, persona non grata. If you keep going this way, you going west, you go through the Chicago University Medical District. They have a thing called University Village, which I would understand that University Village, that would be, the students and so forth. But you go to the University Medical District, now all of a sudden, if you start putting the two stories we've done here together, Bioresource Center with the $5,000 for a body, no questions asked, and you put it together with the medical school district, that, Rush Hospital is in there. There's several major hospitals just to the west of us. And then you go a little bit further, just a little bit further, you're in Holman Square.
Which we're going to go visit.
Which we're going to go visit. And there is a real, if all of a sudden you start putting bounties on people's heads, you really create a moral hazard for humans. That's about the best way I could say it. If fresh kidneys come out and get your fresh kidneys, and a kidney's worth $250,000, you could find a lot of reasons why you need to shoot your best friend, right?
Yeah, I would hope you would not want to shoot your best friend over kidneys, but you could find, if you create a market, you're going to have that, and there has been some stories coming out about stuff like that. So I think people should research it and look into Holman Square and Hull House and University of Chicago. And
the other troubling part about Holman Square and potentially Hull House is if we're doing liaison operations for other countries, so we're actually operating potentially as a torture center for other countries, so it's off book in the UK, let's say, or let's say Haiti or whatever small dictator we want to prop up, like let's say Kagame in Rwanda, and then we send ours there if we want to torture somebody, right? We don't have to report that to our Congress because it's not a U.S. citizen, and they don't have to report it to their Congress because they're not a citizen of that country.
Right. I don't know all the exact federal laws on that, but it seems like there's definitely something to this going on, and this has been mentioned many times, and it's come out in many different articles. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but
Field O'Connell specifically said that there was a Con Air that was taking the U.S. Marshal Service, and they were flying people to Holman Square.
Yes.
And here, I believe.
Right, here. And that Hull House, some of the individuals inside Hull House were used for reasons that people really need to research, especially the young individuals. So
there's an old joke in Monty Python, not necessarily Life of Brian, where he comes home and he has too many kids. He's a Catholic guy, and he says, "Well, medical experiments for the lot of you." We're so close to the University Medical District. You do kind of get a creepy feeling. You get a creepy feeling going in the house. I'll just say that.
Yeah, definitely creepy is the feeling that I would describe. And we got a chance to visit all the original house, and you can see all the old buildings and stuff, which is amazing. But you can also see, and you've heard, if you research, you learn of stories that there's not so good things that happened here as well. And so
we've got one of the university's finest rolling up on us now, and so. If he draws a weapon, we will probably exit from, see him right down here, right over here. So we will probably if he draws a weapon on us for speaking, we will probably leave the premises and remove ourselves to a public sidewalk. So with that, there you have it. I think, well, I'll give you a little perspective of Hull House and make sure I don't get the person who has recently been attacked by McCabe fans on the wide shot here. But you can see it's a beautiful old stately house, and there's 19 of these different houses 19 of these different houses in the whole complex. So all McCabe fans out there, we understand you have a lot of hate toward us. I get that. So continue the hate campaign. But the one way you can fight out against people who support McCabe is by giving to different people we feature here on this channel. Robin Gritz would be one of those folks. And of course, we have our own task force, and they both have their own GoFundMe or different whoops, you're not on that. Okay, so we're going to leave it right there from beautiful Hull House here in South Chicago.